Everyone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to our meeting on Saturdays. This Saturday, we have the pleasure of having Jussara Korngold with us. And we are gonna begin, as we begin always, with our initial prayer. And that's also the theme of the Jussara's talk today, prayer in times of adversity. So I would like to invite everyone to close their eyes and elevate their thoughts to our Master Jesus, asking for inspiration and guidance in these difficult times, providing us with support, with the strength to go through these troubling times, for inspiration for Jussara and her words that she'll bring to us today, and for all of us to open our hearts and our minds to have this message not only reach us intellectually, but also in the recesses of our soul, blossoming the seeds that are there so that we can transform ourselves and begin applying these teachings in our actions. We ask the permissions of the mentors of the Spirit Society of Chicago to begin our studies today. So be it. Welcome, Jussara. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Jussara Korngold is the current General Secretary of the International Spirits Council, the President of the United States Spirits Federation, and the Executive Director of the Tri-State Spirits Federation. She is the founder and president of the Spirits Group of New York and the Spirits Alliance for Books, and she's fluent in Portuguese, English, French, and Spanish, and is a published author and translator of many books in the Spirits literature. With a bachelor's degree in economics and master's degree in finances, Jussara works for Brazil's Child and Health as a main executive. She is also an executive board member of the group Mulheres no Brasil, or Women in Brazil, from Brazil, in New York. Jussara, welcome. Thank you so much for being here to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Spiritus Group of Chicago. I'm very happy to be with you today. I wish we could be meeting at your headquarters and be able to embrace each other, but this is what we have for now. And also, I would like to greet all of you that are watching us now, and especially to wish you all a happy 4th of July. It's going to be a different one, but it's still it makes lead us to remember our founding fathers and the ideas of freedom that we have in this country. So the topic that I have chosen for us to develop today, to reflect today, is about prayer. And we all know, we all understand how important prayer is in our lives and how much it can impact us. But just one sec. There is a background noise. I don't know if it's just me, but I can hear other mics open. Okay, so overall, we understand about the importance of prayer in our day-to-day lives. But I do believe that considering what we have been going through in the past months, we have to rely on prayer even more. And so, in order for us to develop this study and reflecting about it and reflecting about the so many people that have come to us showing their concern in terms of emotional stability, in terms of the difficult times they were already living or foreseeing for a near future, it was when I decided to look for, whatever we could find, I could find in terms of literature to help us in this sense. And I came across this little book that was written by the Spirit Emanuel through the hands, the mediumship, psychography of Francisco Cândido Xavier, where I found an item that Emanuel develops about the importance of prayer. But it's important for us before we begin to explain a little bit about this book. At the preface, Emanuel says that it's a very simple book, and it makes us think about it because we understand that it's not the size of the book, it's not how the book is presented, but the content of the book that is so important for us. And although it's simple and small in terms of size, it brings such precious messages that we will see when analyzing this one. And so, how did it happen? How was the process of putting this book together? Well, Emmanuel describes that in 1959, when Chico Xavier and his friends, his fellows on the Spiritist Center, they used to gather together to study. And they took this opportunity that during the studies, there would be the topic that they would be studying, and then after the study, Emmanuel would come and give his contribution. So let's stop here for a minute and start reasoning. If you could show a little bit of the first slide. And let's see here the image of Chico. And let's stop for a minute here and think about the first lesson that we take from this. We are talking here about one of the most prestigious, renowned, known medium spiritists that we have in all ages, in Brazil at least. But I'm sure he's going to be much more disseminated throughout the world, especially with the translations. A medium that we know possessed so many different kinds of mediumistic abilities. A person that is really, really special and that had a constant contact with high ordered spirits, including the spirit that we call Emanuel. And here we see that every week, and they are talking about just this meeting, but every week they would gather to study. And we see in our spiritist movement sometimes people say, oh, I don't need to study anymore. I know already. There's no need for that. And we see Chico Xavier and all those that worked with them studying. So they gather every week to study. And what was exactly that they were studying? They decided to study the master work of Spiritism, which is the Spirit's book. So they constantly were studying the Spirit book. But in this particular case, in order to put this book together, what they had agreed between them was to study the questions and answers that were contained in the Spirit's book, more related to evangelical teachings, evangelical knowledge. So it was this way that they gathered 91 questions from the Spirit's book, and they started studying question by question, one study group just for one question and answer, and then they would have the participation of the Spirit Emanuel. I don't know about you, but I would love to have been able to witness this moment, to be there with them, and to see, even like a fly in the wall, to be able to witness this gathering where all of the participants would be involved in the reading of the questions, the reading of the answers, commenting their impressions, their idea, their application in our day-to-day lives, while the Spirit Emanuel would be next to them, observing everything that happened until the end of the meeting, that it was also the time for the Spirit Emanuel to participate and to be able to give his impressions about the text, the question and answer that was read from the Spirit's book. So can you imagine how beautiful it is, and how collected, all of them were, and the discipline of, each one taking their turns. And when it was the Emanuel turns, he would come and use the mediumistic possibilities of Chico to write those messages. And sometimes I wonder if when we get one of those books, if we stop for a moment to think about the whole process that make it possible for the book to come about. But okay, this is the introduction that I wanted to give to you, just to give you an idea and perhaps to feel yourselves like if you were really participating in this particular gathering where they were going to be studying about prayer. So let's see, what is the question that they were studying that brought about this whole reflection about prayer. The question was question 663 from the Spirits book, when Kardec asks the spirits, can we avoid our trials or change their nature by praying for ourselves? I mean, this is a question that I think at a certain point in time, we all have asked it ourselves. If it really helps us praying. And I think that especially when we are in times of struggle, in times of adversity, like we were going through now, we may question ourselves, is it really worth for me to pray? Is it going to change the outcome of things? Can I really make it, or this virus just disappear? What we know is that our prayers are always precious, and they are always going to have a good result, a good outcome, even if it is not necessarily what we were waiting for. But the spirits reply to Kardec in the following way. They say, your trials are in God's hands, and there are some through which you must persevere right to the very end. God always takes into account the submission with which they are endured. Prayer calls good spirits to your side, who give you strength to bear these trials with courage so that they seem less severe. So everything that we have to go through, the experiences we need, we have to remember that we have at the current stage of evolvement that we are, most of us actually, we did participate in the choices of trials before our reincarnation. So here we are talking about things that we have agreed upon and things that would actually come into our help and to our rescue, and to help us to succeed in terms of spiritual growth. So, and in this sense, every time that we pray, it is going to bring to us a different atmosphere. Many times when we are enveloped by the sufferings, the struggles on the day-to-day life, it's so hard for us to see clearly and to come up with good decisions. So if only for that, just to remove from us all this negativity that impairs our judgment, prayer would help already us a great deal. But then the spirits keep on saying prayer is never useless when it is sincere, because it gives you this strength, which is important. It's exactly what we were talking about. It's always going to put us in a different energetic vibration, so to say, that is going to help us and assist us not to become completely overwhelmed by the situations we are living. And they say, it has been said, heaven helps those who help themselves. God could not change the natural circumstances to suit the various opposing demands that are made, because what appears to be a great misfortune to you from your narrow perspective and in relation to your temporary life on earth is often a great blessing for the general order of the universe. What is a what is exactly sometimes how we pray? How do we pray? We most of all, we when we remember about praying, it normally is going to be to ask for things, to ask for favors. And sometimes we even come to the point that we kind of try to bargain with God, saying, oh, if you God, if you do that to me, if I'm able to to conquer this situation that I'm living, I will be like a month without eating chocolate. I mean, this is so childish. And how God really is going to benefit from us not, eating a particular food or something, refraining from something that perhaps actually only cause us harm. So we have to think about it, and we have to think about what we normally call the big picture. Perhaps some things that are happening may not be the things that we would like, that we would welcome, but on the great perspective of things, it may be what it is necessary. For instance, let's take what we are going through now. It's being very, very difficult to everyone. For some, unfortunately, more difficult than to others. But in any case, when we do not take the control in terms of applying ourselves to bring goodness, to bring personal improvement, sometimes they will have, divine providence will have to use resources that will lead us to awaken, to think and meditate about things, about how we have been living our life so far, what are the true values of things, and those things in terms of a general benefit. We cannot measure why we are living through those things. Let's take an example of ourselves, our own lives. I'm sure that this may be a fact for maybe all of you that are listening to us right now. We all go through struggles. We all go through suffering. And sometimes when, let's say, the storm passes, and a certain due of amount of time passes as well, we will look back and say, you know what, that was a very difficult period of my life, but it made me become what I am today. And I know that I have improved it because of everything that I have endured during that time in my life. So this is how we have to understand that the divine providence is not against us. It is in favor of us. We are the ones that stray from righteousness, and every time we do that, we will go through the dangers that a more dangerous road will offer to us. And this is how prayer in this case, or heaven helps those who help themselves, means, because sometimes we have so many spirits around us trying to help us, to guide us, and what do? We keep ourselves completely shut to any kind of of good influence that we may have in our lives. So the spirits continue saying, anyway, how many troubles in life do humans create for themselves through their own short-sightedness or wrongdoing? One is punished where one has sinned. However, reasonable requests are granted more often than you believe. When I read this question, I remember of a passage that we have in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 5, that is called Blessed Are the Afflicted. it's a very hard chapter for us to read. And I mean, just the idea of thinking about blessed are the afflicted. This is something that we do not want for our lives. And I mean, we have to understand the genesis, the origin of all that. But there is a, a paragraph where the Spirit says that all the suffering, that the majority of the suffering that we are enduring in this lifetime, they are a result of things that we are doing on this lifetime. Because many times, as a spiritist, because we know of reincarnation, the immortality of the soul, we tend to believe that things that we are going through now, that is not exactly what we wish were happening in our lives, are just the result of, wrongdoings that I did in the past, that I'm making amends now, that I'm trying to learn now. And then I blame my past. And we all like to blame everyone else except ourselves. But then the spirits come and say to us, the majority of struggles and suffering you are going through now are the result of things that you are doing in this current life. So what does it mean? It means that we can do something about it. That is not just, something that I cannot change because it is in my past. No, it is in my present. I can change it. How can I find the strength to change it? Prayer. So the spirits continue. You think your prayer has not been answered because God has not produced a miracle for you, while in fact God has actually assisted you in such a natural manner that it seems to have been the effect of chance or the ordinary course of events. God even suggests the thought of what you must do to help yourselves when in trouble or when experiencing any kind of difficulty. Let's again take an example of ourselves, of what happens in our day-to-day basis. Many times we are going through difficult decisions in life, and in the back of our minds, we kind of have a clear idea of what road we should be taking. But this road represents perhaps a bit more struggles, sacrifices, giving up of certain things. And the other road, the road of the open door, not the road of the narrow door, is always so much more attractive to us. And then instead of, taking the responsibility ourselves, we go and try to share with family members, with dear friends, to see what are their opinions in relation to what should we do in that particular circumstance. And many times our true friends, those that really put our interest first in terms of the long run and not the short term, they will tell us, well, perhaps if you take this path of the narrow door, you're going to be happier. But this is not the answer that I wanted to hear. And then I keep on asking. And at the end of the day, I take the decisions that I want. So every time we go to someone or we look for this kind of guidance, is a moment where our prayers have been answered in terms of assisting us in guiding us on the right decision. But what do? We keep on refusing. So those friends, family members are guided by our guardian angels, by the spirit, the protecting spirits, to lead us to the right road. But our free will is the one that is going to prevail. And if our free will takes us to a different road, this is what we are going to do. But for us to say God is not listening to me is actually the other way around. We are not listening to what God is trying to tell us. And I remember once a friend came to our spiritual center and said, I don't know, Jussara, why these good spirits do not talk to us, do not guide us. And I told him, you know what? I think you are right. They don't do that. They don't talk to us. They are actually screaming in our ears to see if we can listen to them and finally put a stop in every situation bad situation that we are bringing about in our lives. And we have an example on the Gospel according to Spiritism as well, that talks about the effectiveness of prayers, chapter 27. And the story goes like this, which relates very much to how we react when we are, in a dire straight situation, and we pray, and if we have a solution. Sorry. And the story goes like this, the example that the spirits give to us. A man is lost in a desert. He's horribly thirsty. He feels faint, drops to the ground. He begs God to assist him, then waits. But no angel would bring him anything to drink. That's so amazing because, this is what we were talking about. We wait for an angel to appear and comes and make a miracle and make a fountain to appear and give us and quench our thirst and give us things that are going to help us. But here it says, but no angel would bring anything to drink. However, a good spirit suggests to him the thought of getting up and follow one of the paths that lay open before him. Then, by a mechanical movement, by gathering his forces, he rises and all walks on, adventuring himself. And once reaching a higher location, he discovers a stream, and the distance at this site he regains courage. If he has faith, he will cry out, "Thank you, dear God, for the thought that you inspired in me and for the strength that you gave me." But if he does not have faith, he will say, "What a good idea I had back there. How lucky I was to take the path on the right instead of the one on the left." Chance can sometimes really help. How much I congratulate myself on my courage and on not letting myself down. I mean, this happens so often. I think, unfortunately, with us, like for instance, you may be going through a process of illnesses, and of course, you should go to the doctor, take the medicine, go to surgery if that is the case, but you pray as well. And then you say at the end of the day, when you get your healing, your cure, you say, "Oh, thank God I went to this doctor. Thank God I decided to have or better yet, you don't say thank God. You just say, "Thank me that I had this good idea." But we don't see that even when we are going to be selecting a doctor, a course of treatment, surgery or not, everything can be inspired and protected for not to having any kind of interferences by the divine providence, as a result of our prayers. And in this case, when finally good things come our way, we forget to say a prayer of gratitude. But let's now see what is the participation of Emanuel. So those who are basically, I'm here kind of imagining the discussions they were having, what they were talking, and us incarnates participating. But now it's the time of Emanuel to come and to give his participation through the message that we can find in the book Religion of Spirits. Unfortunately, not yet translated into English, but this message was translated by our dear friend Barbara, and we are going to put that in a book. So you will be able to have it hopefully this year. So let's say what Chico says. Not Chico, the Emanuel says. Prayer does not promptly suppress our set of trials, but it renews our spirit so that we may either sublimate or eliminate them altogether. Notice the path shrouded by fog when a dark night distances you from the sun. Above you, extensive clouds steal the stars from your sight, and below you, thorns and precipices endanger your steps. So this is how, when we are going through a trial, when we are going through difficult times in our lives, that we feel very much blinded by the whole situation. And like we were saying before, sometimes it's so difficult for us to reason and to see a way out. And this is when Emmanuel here is saying that although the prayer will not going to suppress immediately the set of trials that we have to go through, it can help us to sublimate or even eliminate them altogether. And so he says, in vain you will examine your compass clouded by the thick darkness. If you advance, you may throw yourself into wide open pits of mud. If you stop, you are likely to suffer the attack of treacherous animals. And in spite of this, create a little bit of light and everything will change. So this is where, when we are in that situation, that we see danger all around us. We don't see a way out. Just like he says here, if we decide to go further, we can throw ourselves in a wide open pits of mud, or if we stay, we can suffer the attack of treacherous animals. And we are in this completely surrounded negative energy, very much like what I mean when we do, or when how we feel when we are in face of adversity. But then he says, create a little bit of light and everything will change. What is this light that the Spirit Emmanuel is talking about? He's talking about prayer. And then he says, what is the result of this prayer? The pond won't lose its swampy appearance, and the stone will still be there as a challenge to warn you on the road. However, being able to see, you will emerge transformed and safe to move forward, overcoming the traps of the shadow and the tribulations of the march. Prayers operate similarly on the pathways of our experiences. So, this is very much like when people come to our spiritual centers. They come many times with great expectations. Most of us, we go due to struggles that we are facing in life, and it comes to a point that we don't know what else to look for, and then someone comes with the idea, or even yourself, I mean, maybe if I pursue a more spiritual religious path, and you can come and perhaps arrive to a spiritual center. But we all come with this expectation that, now I'm going to do good, and I'm going to try to become more spiritual, and my life is going to change completely as if by magic. And of course, this is not what happened. It cannot be. Everything has a process. It is a result of something, and is going to result in something. And many times it cannot be removed from our lives immediately. But there is a difference in us going through those kind of struggles completely blind, not knowing exactly which way to take, how to behave, how to accept, how to position ourselves in before those situations, and us start seeing things from a different perspective. So this open view, the different perspective, the idea that we are not alone, that we have assistance, the idea that it is in our power to, at least if not remove completely all the burdens that we have, the hurdles that we have to go through, at least to not go through them blindly, and to be in a different kind of vibration, with more peace, calmer, and with more strength, resilience, in order to overcome that. And this is what prayer does to us. It's like, when we pray, like if the spirits would come, those spirits that are here, that loves us, that wants to help us, but to not find, any way of attuning with us, simply by us elevating our thoughts in humble prayer, even when we do not say a single word. It's just, the thought that we lift to God, we change this atmosphere around us, and they can come and help us and rescue us and assist us in going through this difficult path, but no longer alone, no longer in despair, no longer thinking that God does not exist, that God does not love us, that were somehow singled out by the divine providence to go through all the struggles. No, now we have hope. We have the understanding that everything happens for a reason. We have the strength, we have the courage, and we have the certainty that we are not alone. And so Emmanuel says to us, when pain obscures the horizon of your soul, depriving you of serenity and joy, everything seems like complete darkness and irremediable defeat, prompting you to discouragement and amplifying your despair. Nevertheless, if you ignite in your heart a light flame of prayer, imponderable threads of trust will connect you to the divine providence. So there's something that sometimes, when I have the opportunity, I share with others. I have this, an understanding that, of course, we know that there are no miracles. There are only things that we do not know, and this is one thing that we learn in spiritism. But I would say that if there is one thing that I would call I myself would call a miracle, at least from my perspective, would be the miracle of prayer, the result of prayer in our lives, and how it changes us and how it fortifies us to go through whatever we have to go through. Even when we are in times of happiness, how can we not be affected by the unhappiness of everyone else? So we, with prayer, gather strength, and maybe if I do not need the direct assistance from God now, I can always claim for the assistance to our brothers and sisters that are also suffering. So Emmanuel continues saying, outwardly around you, suffering doesn't change its dark appearance. Death still is and will always be a veil of painful separation. The trial is still the same unsettling test, and the blow of the atonement remains the difficult and inevitable struggle. But you yourself will be completely restored in the core of your own strengths, with your spiritual perception illuminated from within, so that you are able to understand, despite your pain, the wise plan of life which raises you from the labyrinths of the world to the blessing of God's love. It is so powerful what Emmanuel is trying to teach us here, because he's saying we sympathize, we do understand that you are going to be experiencing pain, suffering in your lives. We know the causes of those pains, like, when we go through the struggles on the day-to-day life, or when death separates us from our loved ones, or when we are suffering injustices, ingratitude, all those things that deeply, deeply hurt ourselves, our hearts, our minds, our spirit. We are, after all, still living in a world of trials and atonements. Hopefully, with all this planetary transition going to a world for a generation. But it is still part of our world, the separation, the pain of separation, the pain of struggles, the pain of ingratitude. But like the spirits keep on telling us here, remember, this is part of a world that do not represent eternal life, do not represent life for you that is an immortal spirit. And even then, even if you are still bound to this world and to the events that happen in this world, you will still can go through that with our support, with the support and assistance of our celestial creator, with the support and assistance of, our brother Jesus, but through the teachings that he brought us. Because here we are not worshiping the man, but we are actually following the examples that this man has left to us, and it still impact our days, and it will be impacting our days for eternity, because they represent words of eternal life. In this way, like they say here, we will find strength. We will be able to feel the presence and the love of God even in times of adversities. Let us think about, our family here on earth, for instance. Even when, we are not excellent parents, or we did not have excellent parents, they were doing their best to raise us, to look after us. We will sometimes see in certain the dynamics in certain families that are very interesting if we analyze them, because we will see that most of the time parents will give more attention, more of their time, of their care, of their love perhaps, to those that are more in need. We will see, siblings, when we will have one that is actually difficult and requires a lot of attention, and others that are okay. These others that are okay, normally they comply for the lack of attention of their parents, which is not true. But of course, their parents have to give more attention and more love and more care to those that are, really going to more difficulties. This is the same way in terms of God. And as a rule, we all that are here on earth today, we are going through times of, to difficulties. We are all still imperfect spirits. So we are these children that need really lots of attention from the heavenly parent figure, which we call God. And so, for us to believe that things are not good on our way because God is neglecting us is exactly the opposite. Because God, that is ultimate love, we will even pay more attention to those that need its presence even more than others. So this is are the ideas that we wanted to bring to you today, that for us to meditate, and for us to to gather together really, and start valuing more prayer in our lives. And remember, every time we are talking about prayer as spiritists, we are not talking about just prayers that we know by heart, or that we are memorizing the words. We are talking about a true conversation with God, when we would come to this parent figure and say, and share with God our concerns, our difficulties, our struggles, and most of all, considering the moment that we find ourselves in terms of in this ladder of evolvement, we realize how much we need strength, not to go back, not to stagnate, and to always have a name of marching forward, of going forth towards our return to the house of God. Because we are like the prodigal children. We have been strayed, we have been giving ourselves to the illusions of the world, and we have not paying that much attention to what is actually uh, eternal, and to what this can represent in our lives. But little by little, we will be picking up ourselves, and going with joy, with hope, with certainty through this path that will lead us to eternal happiness, to eternal joy, by coming each time more closer to our Heavenly Creator. So I thank you for your attention, and I hope that you will be thinking about prayer a bit different from now on, and we'll be incorporating it in every minute, every situation that you will need in your lives to gather strength and to remember that we are children of God, and God is all love and all mercy towards its children.
Thank you so much, Jussara. That was really great. And we have a couple of questions. I was wondering if we could go to a very quick Q&A session. We receive a question from Marcos, that is in Brazil right now, and he asks, what to do in times we are facing a very touchy situation and we aren't even able to pray?
Sorry, that are the times we are facing and we are. Yeah, this is something, Marcos, that I experienced myself. I have been realizing that sometimes it's when we need most that it's harder for us to pray. Exactly, perhaps in relation to what we were saying before, that because when we are going through difficult times, it's so difficult for us to put our mind together, to reason, to be able to concentrate. So normally what I say is that if we see that you are unable to pray, just elevate your thoughts to God and say, God, help me. Or another thing that you can do, gather one of the this the uplifting books we normally in spiritism use, the gospel according to spiritism, or some of the books from the Emanuel, but it can be any book that speaks to your heart, and you start reading out loud that. At the beginning is going to be quite hard, perhaps for you to concentrate, to understand exactly what you're reading. But as you read, as you go along, and as you insist in reading, you will see that it's like, this cloud of negativity. It starts being removed from you. So these are the things that I use for myself when I say, I mean, it's too much, I cannot do it, or I cannot do without any kind of support, and then this is what I do, or I just raise my thoughts to God and say, what is going on in my heart, in my life, and I need your help.
Yeah, Ju, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. And I was here in the background listening, learning with you. And to Marco's question, I also would like to share that something that I've been doing very often as I am experiencing almost daily migraines for the past couple of months. I've been diagnosed with chronic migraines recently, and when I'm in that deep experience of pain, that is really very what is the word? Very disabling, right? Because you are that very profound pain. I find it very hard to pray, to even concentrate. It's just so much pain, right? That really overwhelms you. And I've been reaching out to our friends at the Spiritist group. I've been asking, for their assistance, for their prayers, right? So to help me, especially in those moments. So I think it's also very important how through these painful experiences, many times we learn to cooperate, right? We learn to, these are humbling experiences, right? Because we get to a point where we need to reach out and ask for help, right? And I think that's also so important for us to know that there are people that loves us, that cares for us on both sides of life, right? Sometimes we need to reach out for them. And I think the one of the beauties of us being part of a spiritist group, having this blessing and this privilege to be part of a spiritist group is also the possibility of creating the support, right? The support system that we can reach out and help us. So just wanted to share that, Joe, uh, and how
Yeah,
that has been essential.
and then for those who are watching us here at the Spirit Society of Chicago, we have a little tool we use. We have our prayer group on WhatsApp where we encourage everyone who's in this state, who has sometimes difficulty of praying, even for themselves, to put a request there, and all the team, all the volunteers that are on that group, when they receive, we at least try to encourage everyone when a request comes, or to separate like 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, to make a prayer to that person, because
Mm.
we know that when somebody puts that there publicly, they're really needing of that help. So if you want to participate, just send a message to us on our 773-797-4545, which is our SST phone, and we include you in that.
Could you repeat that, Lino, please? I'm writing here on the on the message.
773-797-4545. It's our SSC updates phone. Uh, Jussara, we have another question here from Jean Robert Williams. And the question is about the citations, quotations for Emanuel, if they are now available in a book or is something that's yet to be published.
The ones that I was talking to
Yes.
about, yeah, the book, the whole book per se is not yet translated, but we have gathered a few messages from this book, and we are going to be publishing in a book by the United States Spiritist Federation this year. And this particular message is actually so amazing, so incredible for us to keep on reading and meditating about it, especially like, and I mean, even considering the question from Marcos, this is a message that when we are going through the struggle, if you read it, you will see how much we can actually be assisted when we just elevate our thoughts, even if, like I said, if we don't say any prayer. But yeah, there are many precious messages from Emmanuel, and we have to pay more attention to those books and those messages.
Thank you. And it's so important, Jussara, and we want to thank you and the USSF for bringing these books into English. It's so important to have this message translated into this language that today is kind of universal, right, to disseminate spiritism. I wanted to ask you a question very quickly. If you could comment on the role of prayer, because we have been discussing the role for us as individuals, right? But what would be the role of prayer as a community, like the group, or in a bigger setting, to change the current state of collective adversity instead of changing the face of our own, right? Like the COVID situation we find ourselves now.
You see, this is something that we always have to use common sense, okay? It's not the number of people praying that is going to make this prayer more stronger than others. It's always a matter of how we pray. And sometimes, although we all know the saying from Jesus that wherever there is two or more people gathering in my name, here I will be there, things like this, we always have to think with this common sense uh, that it is the intention, it is the heart. And of course, if we can gather more people with the same intention, with the same heart, the more powerful the whole experience is going to be. If each one of us could do that at this moment, join more and have faith that our prayers are going to help. Sometimes people come to the center and say, "Oh, Jussara, I'm going through a struggle. Please, I know everything that you do and this and that, and I'll pray for me because your prayer is strong." I say, you know why my prayer is stronger than yours? Because I pray and you do not. That's the only difference, because we are all children of God. And if we all go with the same intention, so this is what really matters. But of course, it is so much powerful in terms of cleansing the whole atmosphere, especially when we are talking about our planet. If we could gather a great number of people, and it doesn't have to be the whole day, because we can't. I mean, we have a short span attention, right? To stay like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours praying. Pray for 10 minutes, but this 10 minutes, make it like it's really going to cleanse everything around you, all in the environment. And this is what really matters. It's the quality of our prayers versus the quantity of people praying and the quantity of words and time we are using.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Osara. This was a wonderful talk, as Danny mentioned. We are very glad to have you here virtually with us in Chicago. We hope to be able to have you physically as soon as well. In the last 3 minutes, I would like to invite you. Would you do our final prayer for us?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Heavenly Creator, we have so much to be thankful for. We have our life. We have our loved ones. We have our ability of reason and of choosing for ourselves. And we have the chance and opportunity to be here on this planet, living and witnessing and participating in such important times for the change of humanity. We have all been invited to become part of this historical moment in the history of humankind. Help us to know how to value this experience, even if it's painful for us, even if at the cost of suffering and sacrifice. But give us the strength to be able to overcome this burden and to be able to give our contribution by witnessing to all, by showing to all that as witness of your love, of your mercy, we understand that we are marching each time more towards you. May we all feel embraced and loved by you at this moment, by the good spirits that are present giving us support, and continue with our week, always remembering that God is waiting for our call, and this call is each prayer that we say in our name, in His name.
Thank you very much again. I wish you have a very pleasant rest of the week. Thank you, Danny, for hosting. And to all of you who are watching us on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, happy 4th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jussara, so very much. We are looking forward to have you visiting us in person when we being here physically too, right? Whenever it's possible. But until then, thank you so very much. We're looking forward for the next time.
Okay.
Stay safe. Bye.
Happy 4th, everyone.
Happy 4th. Bye-bye.
Joining. Bye, Lino. Thanks,
Bye, Danny.
everyone. Bye-bye.